Hello and welcome to our program Where God Weeps. It has been almost 5 years since the American-led invasion toppled the Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein. Since that time, a brutal sectarian violence has broken out between Sunni and Shiite Muslims. Caught in this maelstrom of events is a small Christian population in Iraq. Pre-war population estimates numbered them at about 600,000 to 800,000. But since that time, probably only half remain. To tell us more about the situation of Christians in Iraq, it's my great pleasure and privilege to welcome Fr Emmanuel Youkhana, an Iraqi priest working in the north of Iraq. Fr Emmanuel, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Mark.
Fr Emmanuel, can you tell us, to give us a bit of background, what was it like for a Christian to live under the regime of Saddam Hussein?
Really, it was very hard times, not only for Christians, but for the whole Iraqi population to be under Saddam. But particularly speaking, for the Christianity under Saddam, it was one of the very hard times. That if we just remember that around 140 Christian villages were being demolished completely, including 67 of very old churches. Some of them goes back to the 4th and 5th centuries. They were all demolished. Yeah. And also under Saddam, there was, in the big cities of Baghdad, Mosul, you can attend the church services.
There was a certain freedom of or religious
liberty.
Worship,
just to attend the church services, but to practice in the full meaning of freedom of religion, no. This was the suffer of for example, just to give you some examples, in the last 10 years under Saddam, even the families, Christian families, were not allowed to give Christian names for their babies. It was a decree that only Arabic and Islamic names should be given to the newborn babies. There was no youth activities in the church. It was not allowed. Also, it was not allowed for the Christian community to teach their culture, their mother language in the schools. So it was just a very limited. And this is one of the points that behind the curtains, there was a continuous suffer of the Christianity under Saddam. But in front of the view, especially for the European and Western countries, the media, there was a portrayal that the Christians are under Saddam doing well.
So the American-led invasion brought a certain sense of hope for a change, for liberation, not only for Iraqis, but also the Iraqi Christians and other communities living in Iraq. What was this hope?
Speaking for the 2003 war, which led to topple the dictatorship regime of Saddam, it was really a big hope for not just for Christians, but for all Iraqis, but mainly for Christians, because in all countries, all the times when there is suffer, the minority suffers more. And when there is hope, therefore the minorities hopes more than others. So it was a real hope that there will be an end for the discrimination, for the ethnic cleansing, ethnic discrimination. There will be freedom for speech, freedom for acts, freedom for media, and of course, and most importantly, also freedom of religion. So these were the hope that the Christian community who under Saddam was considered, because of being Christians and because of being non-Arabs, we were considered third or fourth citizen, third-class citizen. So our hope was to practice the equality and to be equal as all Iraqi citizens. Yeah.
What happened that this hope was not realized?
Unfortunately, so far, I would not say it is not completely realized, but it is a passage. It is a passage. What happened after the Liberation War, 2003, it was the collapse of the whole state of Iraq. So the collapse of which created a vacuum of law, and every group, every militia took the power in their hands in the streets, in the cities. So it's not an easy passage to change what we suffered under Saddam, of dictatorship regime, totalitarian regime, to build a new democratic country and institutions. So I would say it is not realized so far, but we are still optimistic. But the reason why, as I mentioned, the vacuum of power, Iraq became an open battle field of fundamental Muslims against the Americans and allied forces. There is no stability in Iraq. There is no functioning institutions. There is no functioning system, schooling system, or so all these creates some of. I would say that people are not confident of what's coming next.
The Christians, I suppose, as we spoke about earlier, the fact that the minority had the greatest hopes, the hopes of the minority then consequently were equally deeply dashed by the situation. What has happened for the Christian community in particular in this new situation?
As I mentioned, because of the collapse of the regime and the vacuum of power, every militia, every fundamental group took the power in their hands. So they start to implement their ideology, their style of life upon all the community, including the Christians. So the Christians suffered a lot after 2003. The Sharia has been imposed for example, in Basra. The start point was in Basra when the Christian community were being targeted because they had some shops for alcohol. They were being targeted. The shops were burned, and the people were being killed. And this the start point was also extended and finally we found that the churches were being bombed, the clergy were being kidnapped and slaughtered. Father Paulos Iskandar, for example, in Mosul. Father Riedemann later on, also in Mosul, was being killed. The Christian culture, Christian style of life is being denied by these militant groups. And the Islamic style of life in clothing, for example, now if you go into any university in Iraq, except the Iraqi Kurdistan region, but we are speaking about Mosul, Baghdad, Basra, all the university, when you enter them, you don't feel you are in a university. You feel that more you are in a mosque or in a Islamic university. And this, of course, is being implemented also upon Christian students. In many places, for example, in Dora, the church were being requested to move the cross from the building of the church. So the start was with targeting the alcohol shops and alcohol places, but the end so far is. But we may expect more of suffer.
Father, can you tell us how is this terror from these Islamic fundamentalist groups being imposed or implemented on the Christian community?
They are using sometimes the letters being thrown in the front of the door, or by telephone calls, or sometimes even in the big gathering of these Islamic groups, for example, sometimes in the mosques, calling upon the Christians to either to pay what is called in Islamic terminology al-jizya, which is
it's like a tax.
The tax paid by non-Muslims to the Islamic State, or to convert to Islam, or to leave
the country.
The country, and this what happened in Al-Dora, where it's now cleaned. Al-Dora was a very famous Christian section in Baghdad. Now it's almost no Christian families are living there no more, and also attacking the church. It was they came to the church and asked them to remove, for example, the cross from the building of the church. Not to forget for the bombing, attacking the church with TNTs and explosions, and also kidnapping the clergy, killing the clergy, as Father Ragid, the Catholic who was martyred, Father Paulos Iskandar, the other Syriac Orthodox Church priest in Mosul, was slaughtered. So, as I mentioned, this is all because of the vacuum of power, and every militia in every city is implementing their ideology and their...
Now, Father, is this an eternal question to Iraq, or is this terrorism being sponsored or promoted from abroad? And for example, what is the role of the Muslim Brotherhood in all of this?
Good question. It's a mixed phenomenon that going back to under Saddam era in last years before 2003, he managed mainly in 19th decade. He launched the faith campaign Hamlatul Iman, which was to teach Quran, teach Islamic fundamental principles for in the mosque, in the schools, everywhere. So there were the seeds that even the Iraqis were after 2003 involved in this fundamental Islamic groups. But also, as I mentioned earlier, that Iraq being an open battlefield for jihadist groups against the Americans. We had in Iraq different groups from different countries, from Saudi Arabia, from Syria, from Palestine. We had seen in the news and the reports that many of these countries are sending their people to contribute in this ongoing fight, jihad in Klama. Against the Americans. So this will lead us for the spiritual father, I would say it. You mentioned the
Muslim Brotherhood.
Muslim Brotherhood, which is an organization started, Sunnit Islamic organization started in Egypt, and the target or the goal of it is to implement the Islamic faith and Islamic Sharia to adopt the Islamic state in all Islamic countries, and to impose the Islamic Sharia upon all the citizens of these countries, regardless of they are Christians or Jewish or Yazidis, non-Muslims, I mean, in general. The start was in Egypt, but it is the spiritual father for all these fundamental Sunnite Islamic groups. Speaking for Al-Qaeda, speaking for Taliban in Afghanistan, speaking for the different groups in Iraq, Hamas in Palestine, and even the Algerian fundamental groups. All they are the copy and versions of the Islamic Brotherhood, which started in Egypt.
There is increasing talk now of pulling the American troops or the coalition forces out of Iraq. Are the troops still necessary in Iraq?
Absolutely, yes. And this is despite all the disagreements between different Iraqi politicians and different Iraqi groups, but they do agree that we realize that there is still a big necessity for these troops because, as I mentioned, there is a vacuum of power. And the new Iraqi army and police and forces are not built and qualified to control the country. And there's a very important point here, I would say, that even the new Iraqi army and the new Iraqi police forces are based on this sectarian and denominational structure. So they are so far they are a part of problem. They are not being a part of solution.
The solution. Exactly.
And this is a big problem. That when you myself, I had been in Baghdad, and you see the police cars, but they carrying the photos, big photos for the Shiite clergy. So even the police
are divided by sectarian.
Exactly, and we had in many cases the report that even the police themselves they were involved in this sectarian violence between Sunni and Shiites. So I think it is early to speak about a big withdrawal of the allied forces, but we may think about focusing on training and qualifying the Iraqi army and Iraqi police to control.
And this leads me to the question, what are your hopes for the new Iraqi government?
Yeah, just to I would say to refresh the hope that we had before 5 years, almost 5 years since the liberation war of Iraq 2003, that to have a democratic country based on the respect of human rights values, not just by wording, but by implementation of it, to respect all Iraqis as equal citizens, not to discriminate because of the ethnicity or because of the religion, because of the denomination. Yeah. You know, Iraq is a very blessed country that Iraq had quite enough economic, financial resource and human resources that all what we need is to give up this violence, this terror campaign, this internal conflicts, and to restore the role of Iraq that had been over the history a positive contributor in human civilization. And Iraq is a very rich country that can survive despite all what happened, all the conflicts that we passed through. But here I would mention that when we are referring to Iraq, all this chaos of terror, of violence, the collapse that happened, and this the violence and this sectarian is all we are referring to the south and middle of Iraq, because
the
north of Iraq, the Iraq
relatively calm,
completely different in all the meaning, in meaning of security, meaning of economy, meaning of respect of human rights and freedom of religion, etc.
Many Americans that were Christian or perceived to be Christians, and therefore the Christians in Iraq suffered more because they suddenly saw that they could be linked with the Allied force.
Yeah, to some extent, yes. When we read the leaflets or the warnings given to the Christians, we are being considered as you are linked to the Americans, you are the Crusaders, while we are the native community of Iraq, and we suffer throughout the history of Iraq, and we had been always been suffering from oppression, discrimination, and all the suffers of Iraqis now because of the vacuum power. Also, we are suffering, but while we share the Iraqis, all the suffer, but when it comes to these Islamic groups, they consider us as invaders, as crusaders, as
the
spies for the Americans, just because they think Americans are Christians, and because we are Christians. So they are mixing the issues, and in a way that it's unacceptable.
In all of this discussion now, could one say that Iraq is being purposely de-Christianized?
I would say yes. If we think now about more than 1,500 Christian community families in Basra, and now we have almost 150 or 200 families left. And when we speak about Dora, it's been de-Christianized. In Dora we had more 7 to 8 churches. We had Catholic Church, we had Syrian Church, we have Orthodox Church, and in Dora there was a monastery there, and there was the Babylon Theological Seminary. It was in Dora. Now nobody, no Christian family is left in Dora. So it is I would say a plan by these Islamic fundamental groups to pluck the Christian community off from Iraq.
One point which we referred to, or let's say we touched on briefly, but I'd like to come back to it, was the question of the alliance, or let's say the perceived relationship between the American forces and the Christians in Iraq. I've also read that there are, after the American forces came in, a lot of American preachers came in to Iraq. Has this also been a problem for the local Christians and provoked perhaps again the Muslims saying, look, not only are you sending your forces, but you're also sending your preachers to convert us?
Absolutely, yes. Unfortunately, the American in bracket evangelizers are repeating the same mistake that they did before 120 years, when they came to divide the native church, when they think, it's a big mistake that they think the Christianity in Iraq is starting with them.
So they come as missionaries thinking
exactly,
that it's virgin territory.
Yeah. We as a native church, whether the Catholic Church or Orthodox Church. Yes, we need the support of our sister church from European Church or American Church, but in a way to support the native church to act and to refresh their life and to start up the youth activities, etc. within the existence, but not to divide
start a new
it.
church.
To refresh a church, it does mean that necessarily you have to divide it, and this is the big mistake that these evangelicals are doing. They're coming to Baghdad, to Kirkuk, to the native Christian community and divide it. So they are creating more conflicts, internal conflicts within the Christian community itself, and between the Christian community and our Muslim neighbors.
I think there was some, I'm not sure of the numbers, but the number of little churches that are now springing up throughout Iraq.
Just to give you an example, myself, I had been in Baghdad December 2003, exactly 8 months after the war, and I met one of the pastors of this American new church, of course, Iraqi pastor, but belong to this church. I can't remember which. I think the Baptist church. I'm not sure. He told me, Father, praise the Lord. Now it is 8 months after the war. We started 8 churches. So for me, it means that 8 divisions.
One church a month.
Yeah, one church a month. Yeah, exactly. So it is. I hope that these missionaries or these churches would realize that Iraq had Christian community for Christian background.
2 millennium.
2 millennium, 2000. If you go through the library of Iraq 2000 years, you see that a big contribution of this library is a Christian literature. The Iraqi Christian fathers, they had their contribution in all Christians all over the world. The Iraqi Christian missionaries, Syrian missionaries, who preached Persia and to the Far East in China. Still, we have the Syrian monument in China. Is to say that we had been apostolic church. We had so it's not the Christianity is not starting now in Iraq. And this is the point that this evangelizing group should know and should realize.
Father, not only a new government, but a new constitution. Is freedom of religion guaranteed in the new constitution?
We have one Iraqi constitution for all Iraq, but within the region of Kurdistan, they are being a federal region. They have we have the constitution for this region, but in many fields
there is an overlap.
Yeah.
But Father, I want to concentrate on the federal constitution.
Yeah.
Then my question is there freedom of religion in the federal constitution that is being proposed?
We are not happy with the context of constitution in this regard. It is adopting the Islamic Sharia in a meaning. Yeah. And if you go through the details of the Constitution, even the Supreme Court, the Supreme Constitutional Court of Iraq, by the Constitution, is forced to include Islamic clergy in it. So it is absolutely, we see that there is religious discrimination. There is, of course, we realize that the Iraqi community is the majority, more than 95% Muslim community, but does mean necessarily to impose the Islamic Sharia and Islamic religion upon the non-Muslims. So it is not. I would say the Iraqi, I would put it this word, that the Iraqi constitution do guarantee the freedom to worship, but not the freedom to of religion to convert onto or to choose, be converted. to choose your faith, and this is on opposite of the human rights declaration.
In fact, we're going back to a situation which was similar to what was existing under the time of Saddam Hussein.
Exactly. In this regards, yes. In this regards, even worse, I would say. Even worse, because now, as I mentioned, that the Iraqi Supreme Court should include Islamic clergy in it. So in this regards, I would say it is worse than earlier.
Are you hopeful for Iraq's future?
Yes, absolutely. I'm full of hope that we will, as Iraqis, we will pass this cause, this passage, and we will build our country new democratic Iraq. But of course, we should forget about copying what we had earlier, a central, totalitarian, powerful government in Baghdad. We should realize that there are Iraqi community is a mosaic, and we have to respect the rights of all Iraqi components. So I am optimistic that we will have an Iraqi federal system based on democracy, human rights, respect, freedom of religion, and for the Christian and Syrian community, we will have the constitutional rights to practice our identity, to practice our rights, including the autonomy. This is what we are fighting for it, and we have good indicators to have the self-autonomy region for the Iraqi Christian Syrian community with other minorities like Yazidis, like Shabaks. So I am full of optimistic, but it's not easy passage. It needs to be patient.
Father, you've just come back from Iraq and you're going to be going again shortly. So I'd like to thank you for the time that you've taken to be with us here today.
Thank you, and God bless you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today in our program. And if you'd like to know more about the situation of Christians in Iraq, or perhaps how you might be able to help, I would encourage you to look at the contact information posted at the end of this program. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Where God Weeps.